Welcome to the Haunted Hangover podcast. I'm Louie, and I'm joined by my bud Dave.
Hello, I'm back.
And for the fourth year in a row, now we could see his lovely face this time. Woo! Sexy beast. We're joined by Adam from the Great Pumpkin Project. Welcome back, sir.
Hello there. Four
There
years, man. That's by the time
Crazy.
By the time I do more of these, it's like I'll be 85. It's flown by.
Wow, you're gonna hit 85 in 4 more years. You
Good
look
for
great.
you.
You look great.
I'll feel 85 in 4 years. That just goes to show for the longevity and the success of the podcast.
I guess so. I guess you're right. I wonder what I'll look like in 4 years. Will I look 84 as well? What about you, Dave? Are you gonna look 84 in 4 years?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna look
But we'll see.
25 in 4 years.
At the rate the world's going.
Oh no. But yes, Adam, if our listeners, shame on them, don't
They
know
know
what
what's
the Great
up.
Pumpkin, they know what's up. But if they don't, if there's a new listener out there that doesn't know what the Great Pumpkin Project is, please inform them what this is specifically and what you do.
If you are a loyal listener of the podcast, you should already know. But if you are a noob, the Great Pumpkin Project is the thing that I do, carving 31 jack-o'-lanterns one for each night of the month of October, and put them in random places, spooky houses, overpasses, side of highways, weird New Jersey locations, stuff like that, just for the random person to happen upon one and spread some Halloween cheer. Beyond that, other people have participated and put out tags you can print out and you put on the pumpkins. A different artist does the artwork every year. And you should do the same. And you should send your pictures to Great Pumpkin Project at Instagram and share in the Halloween spirit and do it every year and build family traditions and make this a thing that'll last forever.
Now, Adam, I know you usually get a Halloween artist, I guess is a good way of putting it, every year to design the badges or the what are they called? I'm not using
tags.
the tags, the badges, the tags. Can you hit us with the knowledge of who it's going to be this year, or is it still a secret?
It's still a secret. It's still in the process. I
Boo.
haven't gotten. Yeah, sorry. Big letdown. I haven't gotten the final work yet, so I don't want to, make it a definite yet. But
Yeah.
it's good. It's going to be good. It's going to be a pretty involved design for the tiny size of these things. So hopefully it comes out awesome. And
They always come out awesome, dude. Don't
can't wait to
undersell it. You're underselling it. Hopefully they come out awesome.
hopefully they're passable. Yeah.
The past few years I've seen them in person. They look fantastic.
same.
So
It always comes down to the wire too. Never fails.
yeah, last year's was pretty close, right? Well, you were cutting it close, I think. Or
Cutting
no,
it-
was it
cutting it
you
close
yeah.
again.
Yeah, man, you push out the best shit when you cut it close. So come
I
on, man.
agree. Procrastination is nothing but quality work in the end.
And Adam graciously sends us tags to put on, and very, very appreciative of that.
Always,
Yes.
always, of course.
Yep.
Always.
Love
I've got
it.
my collection here at my desk. I can see like 3 of them over there.
They
I
should.
use them as bookmarks sometimes
yeah.
too.
You better be getting some of those out there, though.
Oh no, we do.
I know they look good, but
We don't want to destroy. Well, you know me. I always use one for the Haunted Hangover
Yeah.
jack-o'-lantern I carve every year. And
I
hopefully,
appreciate that you're collecting them, though. And Dave,
Yeah.
I remember you've been using them as bookmarks forever.
he's the bookmark guy. He uses them as bookmark. He does
well,
put them on his pumpkins though too. You do put them on
No,
your
we do.
pumpkins.
No, what
yeah.
happens is Sheila, because Adam will send us a few, so Sheila or I will just sacrifice one, and we keep another. That's what we do. We just put them next to
works.
each other. That's all.
That works.
It's all an illusion. He pulls the tag off and takes it home, leaves the pumpkin. So
Just take the shot for Instagram and keep the tag. I won't be mad at you, but
nobody will know. Just keep
Right.
that a secret. This year I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that you and I, Adam, can meet up and I'll have the jack-o'-lantern all carved up. Not sure what the design is. I have to figure that one out this year. Usually the wife carves it because I'm not talented enough to carve a unique looking jack-o'-lantern.
Dude,
so,
classic jack-o'-lantern is all you need, man.
Nah, I like to do something special for the Haunted Hangover. I shoot a video for it and everything, so it's got to look good.
Okay. You've seen my work, and I can't carve for shit. So.
No, I know. But what's funny is the last few years, I've tried to kind of correlate it to a big thing that happened that Halloween season. So like last year, I don't know if you guys saw it. Adam, you might remember. I had it carved to look like one of the Boo Pails, the McBoo Pails.
Yep.
Because that was like the big thing that Halloween season. I think the year before, I had the jack-o'-lantern carved to look like the Heart Eyes jack-o'-lantern from one of the new Halloween movies at the time, like one of the new trilogy. So like I forget what the first year was the Haunted Hangover logo, one of the logos.
Yep.
So I tried to
keep it topical.
Yeah, topical, whatever it is. I don't know what this year's gonna be, so I gotta kind of figure that out. When
they're putting out the pails again.
Yeah, but I did that already. Got to move on to something different to design the jack-o'-lantern. Got to come up with something more unique, maybe something more intricate this year. And yes, hopefully you and I can meet up, or I'll meet up with you.
Done.
You'll take me to a cool location.
All right, I'll make sure I save one.
A nice spooky one, and I'll go and I'll shoot the video for the jack-o'-lantern there. Usually I don't do that till October, so we've got some time. Yeah, at the time of this recording, we've got some time to kind of figure that one out. But I have to figure out the design too. I'm doing some crazy shit this year with Haunted Hangover, like the Halloween special and stuff, some ridiculous shit. So that pumpkin, I'd like for it to be carved, not ridiculous, but just something a little unique. We'll see when we get there. Yeah. Okay. I won't be carving it because, again, I don't want it to be classic, man. I just don't. I want something different. So we'll see when we cross that bridge.
Done.
But yes.
No pressure.
No pressure. Never under pressure. But yes, we always cover iconic jack-o'-lanterns when you're on the show. That's our thing. We do it every year. And this is number 4. And I know Dave always says it's getting harder and harder to find iconic jack-o'-lanterns.
He's not wrong.
I've got a list of like 9, and I'm not going to say what they are because they're in my notepad on my phone. I've got 9. And even this year, I helped Dave I found when I was like, Dave should pick this. This is a very Dave pick. So I gave it to him because I was going to pick it, but then there was another one in that same group, and I was like, I'll go with this one and let him pick that one. So there's plenty out there. You just got to really use that noggin and get obscure with it, which is, I'd say this year, for the most part, all of our picks are kind of obscure, kind of. We've got one returning in your case, and then one super obscure one in your case, Adam. And then Dave has one very unique one that I think most people don't even know about, and then one that I think a lot of people know about. And I think mine, for the most part, are kind of deep cut, right? Yeah, very deep cut.
I've never seen the one that
yes.
I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
I've never seen that.
So we are in the territory of them becoming deep cut, iconic jack-o'-lanterns. And some of these are new discoveries. Like one of my picks I found out about, I'd say in the last year or two. And I was just researching something else and then came across what it's on and then discovered that. And I was like, wow, this is fucking strange and I need to talk about it. So that's where we are when it comes to iconic jack-o'-lanterns. I think that we're using the word iconic as loosely as it gets now at this point. But I still think it's safe to say all of these jack-o'-lanterns on this list, these 6 jack-o'-lanterns, can be iconic in a way. I don't know if you guys would agree or disagree with me.
Sure. I'd agree.
I think
iconic, maybe iconic. I mean, I guess you could use the word iconic, but maybe memorable.
It's all subjective.
That might and another word you could use is memorable.
Memorable jack-o'-lanterns. Because we've got some deep at the bottom.
We got some left field stuff.
Yes, very, very strange. And with that being said, Adam, as always, you're the guest. Hit us with your first pick.
Take it away.
You guys find this place as creepy as I do, right?
So it's some kind of weird cult where they wear vegetable costumes and dance around a big thing. They seem nice enough.
Okay, you're in denial, that's fine. But I'm just saying, something feels off about this place.
So before I get into the pick, I owe you guys tremendous credit for this because so the pick itself is going to be the Pumpkin People from Over the Garden Wall, the Hard Times at the Huskin Bee episode. And the reason you guys are owed credit here, that particular episode, you at least I became aware that even existed through Instagram, many like 5-6 years ago. In October, everybody's posting pictures of them and you're like, what the heck is this? And you go and look into it and you find that particular episode and you're like, oh, this is cool. You see, they stumble upon the town, there's the Pumpkin People. But at that point, you watch that episode and truth be told, it didn't really dive that much into the rest of the series. After I listened to your guys' episode on Over the Garden Wall specifically, I'm like, this is owed a lot more attention. You guys talked a lot about like the final episode at like the Halloween party and like the vibes that it put out. I'm like, and that sold me. I'm like, okay, I'm missing something. And I'm a huge fan, specifically at, because of your guys' discussion on it. So thanks for that. Yeah, like I've got like right now I've got a bunch of the like little figures and stuff at my work desk and whatnot. But love it. I spent too much money on the vinyl of it. Like that's cool.
I got it when it came out.
Yeah, I had to wait, or should have gotten it sooner. But the episode itself, if you were unaware, and this is another shame on you thing, because this year when it was time for me to pick, I'm like, okay, what's actually iconic? What 15, 20 years down the road is going to be like a memorable jack-o'-lantern? And this is the first thing that came to me, because you see a lot of people referring to it now through social media and just in general. It's a new classic. It's become a new classic. It may be an equivalent to like the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown to kids who are like 5 now, but when they're in their 20s, it's going to be like, oh, the seasonal thing to do is watch Over the Garden Wall. But to go into the actual pumpkins themselves, so Greg, Bert, Beatrice, those are the main characters of the show. They stumble upon a town called Pottsfield, and Pottsfield is inhabited by a bunch of pumpkin people, led by a leader, a larger pumpkin named Enoch. But as an aesthetic, they're fantastic. There's a whole lot of whimsical nostalgia in that episode, which you guys have talked about before, and it hits all the right notes. In doing some research for this pick, a few things I found out that I didn't know or didn't catch at the first view. Pumpkin people all are skeletons. It's just skeletons wearing pumpkin heads. Enoch, the main pumpkin, is actually a black cat. So you see at some point, Pumpkinhead comes off, it's a black cat. And in the earlier episode, there's a black cat collecting pumpkins, apparently for the people of the town. The name Pottsfield is actually taken from the term Potter's Field, which is a field, like a mass grave of 10 to like 30,000 people, usually like day laborers that couldn't afford actual graves. And if you watch the episode, like they're digging their own graves and you see the skeleton people come out. So I'm like, oh, this totally makes all this sense, going back and looking into some info for the episode, and just made it, more insightful. The whole show, obviously, as just has so much to, dig through and so much, hidden meaning and
it's
little
super
like tips
deep
of the hats
for
and
an
stuff.
animated series. Like it's a lot deeper than it needs to be, which is what's
That's
so
what
good
makes it
about
great.
it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, go if you haven't, listener, go back and listen to their episode about it.
Yes,
it'll sell you on it if you don't already know what it is.
That was about I think we covered that like 2 years ago. It's a while ago.
It feels about right.
It might have been the first year of Haunted Hangover of the show that we covered it. Maybe first or maybe into the second year of the podcast existing. I don't know. We've recorded over 100 episodes at this point, so I've lost track of when we covered it. But to go back to the pumpkins themselves, the jack-o'-lanterns, I guess, if you want to be specific, one of my favorite things about that like kind of whole sequence is that the characters even call them a cult. They call them like a weird, creepy cult. And there's that one scene that I've always loved where they're looking at one of the pumpkin people, and it just creepily turns its head and looks at them. It's so fucking funny, and it just goes to show you how, even though they're supposed to be creepy and strange, it's still kind of heartwarming and cute. Even though when in reality, when you think about it, it's kids literally stumbling into like this group of like dead people, like this cult of dead people, and not even realizing it until later, because at that point when they meet the group, they just think it's people dressed up as like gourds is what they say or something like that, right? So I've always loved how subtle it is, especially with the them all being corpses and the kind of cat being the ringleader of the whole thing and kind of the reason why that's happening. It's a great show, man. And that's to me, in my opinion, and I might have said this when Dave and I covered it 2 years ago, that entire sequence, besides obviously Halloween and the jack-o'-lanterns themselves, everything about that is autumn, fall, farm. It looks more like a farm, like almost like a harvest situation with cornfields and haystacks and things like that. And then the pumpkin people just add that kind of overall Halloween aesthetic to that setting. It's really, even the warm tones that they use is
the color palette of it all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And because, for the most part, the movie starts and ends on Halloween, but that episode sort of, I think it's episode 3 or 4, if I remember correctly, is one of the things that reminds you that that's when this is set or takes place. Without spoiling the ending, which Dave and I did when we reviewed it. But you couldn't spoil, I won't spoil the ending now because it's a great ending. It ties it all together great. I'm not going to. But definitely after you watch it, go back and listen to Dave and I kind of dive deep into it and kind of give our thoughts on the entire Over the Garden Wall. It's a mini series because it's only one season of the show.
It's 10 episodes.
10 episodes. It's like one
narrative, 12-minute episodes.
Yeah, it's an easy watch too. Like the whole thing is like an hour.
I'm due for a rewatch.
Same here. I haven't seen it since we covered it, so maybe this.
I pulled out the DVD before. I was like, shit, I gotta watch this again.
Yeah. It's on Hulu too. It's on Hulu and HBO Max.
Yes, nice. Yes. I definitely have to go. I think most people should, like this Halloween season, go back and give it a watch. I feel like you said like a lot of like Adam, you were saying how like kids that are 5 now in 20 years will appreciate. I feel like I don't see enough love for it. I do see it on social media here and there, sprinkled on Twitter and Instagram and stuff, but I still think it's underrated.
It's definitely underrated.
It's 100% underrated, but you have to like just like you said, it's pretty deep. It's not
really for 5-year-olds. Like a 5-year-old won't
cartoon,
but it's not for 5-year-olds. There's nothing about it. Maybe the beast element of it might be a bit much, but like I look at stuff that I watched as a kid or friends of mine watched as a kid, like The Last Unicorn, or I've still never seen Return to Oz because it is terrifying to me.
I love Return of Oz. But speaking of iconic jack-o'-lanterns, he may or may not be on the list I created, but we won't get into that right now.
Just saying.
So,
but yeah, so this is obviously this is nothing in comparison to the creepy shit that was around in the 80s. No, and it's a cartoon, so I think, especially because it's also Cartoon Network. It's not like where Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown aired every year on ABC on a day in October, and that was the thing. So it's obviously not as accessible, but being that everything is streamed or on some kind of streaming service now, I think because it's coming around, it existed for about 4 or 5 years before I even watched it. So it's just kind of slow burn.
I was late to it too. Dave is the one that put me on to it because I hadn't seen it until he mentioned it to me and was like, "Hey, we should cover this on the show." And I'm glad he brought it up because I probably wouldn't have heard about it otherwise. I probably would have saw the pumpkin people and been like, "Oh, what the fuck is that?" Watch and be like, "Oh shit, this is amazing."
It's coming up on 10 years it came out, I think. So I think it came out in 2014. So it aired in 2014, I believe. And yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if we got something cool next year with that.
That would be great.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah,
So.
and there's kind of a theme in our episode here. Unintentionally, Adult Swim makes a couple of appearances in this episode. So mentioning kind of Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, Dave, hit us with your first pick.
Imagine from the perspective of my pumpkin. Right now, in the rearview mirror, it's looking into the eyes of its creator. And I can't help but feel that it's asking, why?
So Louis actually, and I forgot about this because I don't know why, but it wasn't my first thing to think about when I was thinking about jack-o'-lanterns.
So
but
good.
Louis is the one that was like, you should do this. And I was like, well, luckily for us, I've watched this episode when it aired. So the jack-o'-lantern that I'm going to be talking about today is from the show Joe Pera Talks With You. And the episode is called Takes You on a Fall Drive, which was season 1, episode 3. And this aired in 2018. So, like I said, I watched this when it actually aired. So I would DVR it, and then when I'd come home in the morning from work, I would get breakfast and sit on the floor in my room, and this is obviously back in New York, and watch it. And it's such a lightfully, I don't even know if that's a word, silly and somber show all at once. So Joe Pera was originally it was like an animated thing. And then they went from the animated thing to this show, and I believe it had 3 seasons, and then they canceled it.
It didn't have a long run.
No, it only had 3 seasons, and I think I watched the first 2. I did not watch any of the 3rd season. I do believe he has a podcast now.
He does have a podcast now.
Joe Pera, is it
like
Talk
the
You to
sleepy
Sleep or something like
a
that?
sleepy
Yeah, I don't know what it
podcast
is
or something. Yeah, it's
But
weird.
It's a very unique take on comedy because it's like this somber but light-hearted comedy, but it's also a little bizarre. Like I don't, it's
Extremely
one of a kind.
Bizarre.
Yes, it's unique.
The best way I could describe him, he's like a 90-year-old man who's 30.
Yeah.
That's
That's very accurate.
Yeah, that's basically he's like a 90-year-old man who's like 30 years old. It's very odd and strange.
It's strange, but it works, and he's super funny, and he's just like the type of guy like you'd want to sit down and like eat an apple with or something. Like he's just Joe Pera is great. So we get this in this episode we get this. Joe likes to go on his fall loop. And I love this right away because this is something I think many of us can, gravitate with, is that we all have our Halloween fall traditions. And I certainly had drives that I would take back in New York. And we get this shot of Joe buying an apple at a farm stand and continuing his drive on a really gloomy, beautiful fall day. Now, I think you guys would agree that, and Adam, I'm sure you would probably agree that this is the kind of day you'd want to lay a pumpkin down and,
Yeah.
Lay that pumpkin down.
Yep. Totally. 100% agree with you.
So it's like this wonderful day, and he says when he carves his pumpkin, he gives it a piece of his soul and wants to lay it to rest the same way he can be someday. So he goes on to talk about waterfalls and hopes to visit all of them someday. He also says he's going to die when he's 85. I like how he knows he's going to die.
He knows.
And he says...
It's so strange, dude. He's like when I die when I'm 80, it's like 84, I think, or is it 85? 85? Okay.
85, and
In
he's going to
4
die
years.
of a poison kiss. That's what he goes, from a poison kiss. And then we get a little bit of monologue too, where it's like a shot of the jack-o'-lantern, and the jack-o'-lantern's just like, it's like nothing crazy looking. It's got like crescent eyes, it's got it's obviously got a nose and it's got like 2 teeth on it. And he's saying like it's being put like it's being created and then it's being destroyed. I don't remember the exact monologue, but in Joe Pera fashion, if you're not familiar, it may sound bizarre to you. Watch it and you'll understand. So Joe is walking through the woods. He gets to a clearing where he can lay this jack-o'-lantern into the river, and he just lets it go. It's a rightful farewell, and it washes away into the wild waters. And it's again somber, silly, and pretty all at the same time.
It falls off a waterfall too. There's a shot of it literally crawling through like the rapids and then just falling off. And he's just staring, looking into the distance. Oddly, it's so good. Dude.
Yeah, it's great. And honestly, the reason why I think this will be an iconic thing is because it's the setting and the person who's doing the action of letting the jack-o'-lantern go. So I think that's what really puts this in an iconic territory, in my opinion.
No, I agree. This definitely, similar to Over the Garden Wall and the Pumpkin People, this too is underrated. I never see this segment shared around Halloween time or after Halloween, or you never see it. And Dave's probably the only other person I know that knows what this is because
I forgot about it. I was like, oh shit,
so good, dude. I watch it all the time, and I wouldn't say I'm a big Joe Pera fan. I did enjoy his show because of how odd it was. Like I like weird shit like that too, because it would air at like 1 a.m. It was weird. It would not even like 2, 3 a.m. sometimes. And I didn't watch this live. I forget how I came across this, but I think one time I was Googling like adult, like strange
sad
Adult Swim.
Pumpkin videos.
No, it was like strange Adult Swim stuff, and then I just stumbled on it one day a few years ago. But one of my favorite things about it is just kind of how it starts, and you see a pumpkin decaying, and how he kind of correlates it with life. And how like
he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. What's funny is he says he wants to be when he dies, he wants to be put into a river and then fall off of a waterfall. That's kind of what's implied with it, which is what's so odd about it when you think about it. He says he wants to go out the same way. And you said the pumpkin isn't anything special. It's a great looking jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I was trying to get at was like, if you were to look at it, I think most people really wouldn't be like, "Oh man, look at that jack-o'-lantern." You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I meant by that. So maybe I misworded that, but
it's my level of carving ability.
But
no, it's
my level of carving ability too.
And I love how he has it sitting in the back seat like it's a person. Like, is it tied in with the seatbelt? I don't remember.
I don't know. I was trying to figure that out. I think it's just sitting there.
And then he's looking at it in the rear view mirror, isn't he? Like looking in the he's like looking at it and like staring back at it. It's so awkward, but great. Just everything about the entire scenario, him holding it, and like the face is pointing at the camera. The way they shoot the entire segment too is great cinematography. It looks great.
Yeah,
it looks great. It looks like a Bob Ross painting. Honestly, it's fucking beautiful.
You know what it is? I think what might put people. It's not Halloween. It's fall looking. It's not Halloween looking because there's no Halloween decorations. It's all just
a fall drug.
Yeah, exactly. So. You know, that I think that's also the other thing, what made me not think of this. I was like, oh, wait, when you said this to me, I knew exactly what you were. I was like, oh, okay, this is actually a great pick. So I am glad you told me to pick this one because I think people should see this. The show in general is great. Like, if you're going to start with a show, watch this. Watch the breakfast episode when he goes out to breakfast. It's amazing. It's
a funny one.
You told me Halloween in a breakfast episode. Consider it. I'm sold on this
great.
now.
I was watching it before, and Sheila's like, what are you watching? I was like, Joe Pera, and she goes, oh, that guy. Because I showed it to her before, and she's like, he's funny. And I was like, yeah, it's great.
Adam, what did you think of this? Because you had never watched it before, right?
Never seen it. And I love the podcast for the reason it's put me on to stuff that I wasn't aware of before. And I love doing this because either A, I don't know about the pick, or B, it, recenters my interest on something I haven't watched in a while. This I know nothing about. I've heard nobody utter the name Joe Pera. I have never seen any meme or whatever thrown on social media about this. And the second I put it on, I'm like, this is fantastic. I would drive this drive
Oh
all
yeah.
October, right? Like I'm just like, I immediately loved it. And then I'm watching it, and the things that came to mind, I'm like, one, I've never felt sad by somebody's pick of the 4 years of doing this.
Yes.
Like, it's okay to cry over a dead pumpkin, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, is this going to be me? Like, am I that
It
guy?
might be all of us.
Am I that guy? Because the one thing with stuff that's usually comes out through Cartoon Network or Adult Swim is it's so off center. You either get it or you don't. It's too weird, and you either find it funny or just too strange.
Yeah.
And this was perfect in every way. I'm like, I will watch this every year.
Yes,
Like,
it's a must
I'm
watch.
so glad this was a pick. I'm just like, this is so ridiculous. I know I've talked to you guys about like Jack Chop before. I think that was like my first year's pick. That's a short YouTube video I watch every year. This will be added to that because I was so impressed with that. I'm like, this is ridiculous, and I love it.
So glad.
This is a good November 1st watch. Like I feel
Ooh, that's too
That's
much.
funny.
like watch
That's
this.
too much.
Like Dave and I have talked about how depressing we've talked about it at nauseum how depressing November 1st is, but I think this is the most somber thing you could watch on November 1st.
Oh, don't do that. You're completely right, but now I'm just like, oh, you're watching
tears.
this, eating the last of the box of Count Chocula, crying into the bowl.
Yep.
Adam, this year you got to take a pumpkin to a waterfall, get a shot of it, right, and then just let it float away.
Yeah, you have to do it.
That's a genius idea. That's just add another required pumpkin carving to the 31. It's like 32. The November 1st pumpkin.
You could take that first pumpkin of the month, save it until November 1st. So October 1st to November 1st, and then you set it free. You let it go.
I love that idea.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
I'm a pumpkin, ain't that something? I'm a bit of a country bumpkin. I'm a pumpkin, and I can't win, 'cause I'm here on Halloween night.
All right, so my first pick, 100% obscure. Probably the most obscure on this list.
If it's what I think it is, I've never even seen this thing before.
I don't think any of you guys, neither one of you have ever even heard of this video I sent you. I'm a pumpkin. So my first pick is from the Peppermint Park TV show, or ill-fated, short-lived TV show, Peppermint Park.
Don't even know what that is.
And the segment, I'm a Pumpkin. So, before I dive into this particular jack-o'-lantern, Peppermint Park is speaking of strange TV shows, this is unintentionally a strange TV show. And what this was a direct-to-video children's program that sort of aired between 1987 and 1988. So a very small window. And this never aired on TV. It was only video cassette. So
it looks like public access.
Almost. And if you were a kid, probably in, between 87 and probably the early 90s, the only way you saw this is if you were like 4, rented it, I'm assuming, or bought it at a store accidentally somehow and watched it. And you probably had nightmares that night because the show is basically a ripoff of Sesame Street with puppets. There's obviously live action people and stuff, cartoons, but there's a lot of, kind of, what's it called? The weird, not Mandela effect. When something looks odd and you can't quite figure it out. What's the word? Regardless, whatever, moving on. It'll come to me. But the show itself just features similar, as Sesame Street. You've got your main puppets talking and things like that. And you'd cut to I don't know if you guys remember on Sesame Street, like the healthy food segment with Cookie Monster and all the fruits and vegetables talking. They would kind of go to these self-contained segments. And in this segment, it's basically a pumpkin singing about being a jack-o'-lantern on Halloween and just being a pumpkin. And it's a single hand puppet, you can tell, just talking back and forth while there's this weird, like really cheap farm type backdrop with these rolling cardboard looking pumpkins moving and stuff. Yep. It's really odd. And the song is only like a minute and a half long. It's really short, but it's the weirdest thing to watch. There's something eerie about it, and I can't quite pinpoint. Like there's weird eerie undertones. And the reason why I'm picking this is because there's a creepypasta called Candle Cove. Are you guys familiar with that at all?
Nope.
So there's this I don't have all the details here in my notes, but there's this creepy, but you guys are familiar with creepypastas. They're basically folklore. They're almost like an urban legend, but sort of created from, it's basically something that exists, kind of like the Mandela effect that we just mentioned, but it's kind of turned into this dark tale, and sometimes people believe them, just like urban legends. You know, like there's I think the most infamous one is there's this Mickey Mouse short that people say if you watch it, you die. I don't know if you guys have ever heard. There's a lot of them. There's like I don't know if it's called Jake the Killer, or there's another killer that if you look at them for too long, you're killed. So Candle Cove, they actually made a Channel Zero season about Candle Cove. It was a children's TV show that apparently was so evil and so scary that they had to cancel it, and it's lost media. No one knows, where to watch this thing. It's not real. It's all fiction, but the people that, created the Channel Zero Candle Cove episode, and I believe the creepypasta itself, this show, Peppermint Park, was the inspiration for it because of how not lost it was, because you can find all of this on YouTube. You can basically find the entire series. I'm pretty sure most of the segments and stuff are on YouTube, but it was so strange and surreal that people thought it was this like evil Candle Cove children's show. And when you watch this pumpkin segment, I'm a Pumpkin, you can feel just kind of uneasy. Like there's something wrong here. Like if you were to slow this down the tempo, it would be the creepiest fucking thing in the world.
Can I add something? So yes. I think generally anything that's shot on video is unsettling. Like it has that I don't know if there's a word for it, but there's almost like a surreal quality, distressed quality, especially with the tape hiss in the background from recording. It's automatically fucking weird. Like it doesn't matter what it is. Mm-hmm. Like it has that aesthetic right from the get-go. So like I totally agree with you.
And the term is Uncanny Valley. There it is. So
yes, I've heard of that.
Uncanny Valley. So what happens with the show is, when something is like Uncanny Valley, your brain can't register. It thinks this thing is like sentient, but it looks kind of human, but your brain knows it's not a living thing. I don't know if I'm articulating it properly. Education. Yeah, so Uncanny Valley is like when you look at like a mannequin or a robot that looks real, and it's creepy because it's trying to mimic human. It's trying to mimic kind of a human personality or the look of a human. So Peppermint Park and I'm a Pumpkin, this little segment, has kind of that strange, uncanny, lo-fi quality that Dave just mentioned, attribute to it. And that's what I love about it. This would be perfect, and it might be something I do in the future or maybe even this year. It would be perfect in a Halloween mixtape, and I've never seen anyone use it to my knowledge. Like, it's just a weird fucking segment. It's innocent. He's literally just talking about being scary on Halloween and being a pumpkin and being a jack-o'-lantern. And it is cute, but just those undertones, man. Again, the Uncanny Valley, the word that I couldn't remember, but now I got because I just looked it up, is what makes it unsettling. And I love it, dude. I love it.
The way you just described the whole thing is completely 180 from like when I watched it. I'm like, all right, this is going to get stuck in your head. And two, how is this not like a kid's favorite? Like for the most part, people of our age probably remember like Five Little Pumpkins sitting on a
Yeah.
gate, one mine's getting late, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, how is this song not in the vein of like, oh, every second grader sings this? So I had this like, okay, this is definitely like 1970s PBS,
Yeah.
or public access like Halloween special. And then you just took this left of like, no, this is something's weird.
Well,
Something's not
no.
quite right. But no, that's, I
Yeah.
dig it.
Yeah.
I like the fact that that's part of the charm, at least to you. And, and to be able to look at it that way now, it's like, you might get something a bit more weird out of it.
I'd recommend, if you guys haven't, you guys included and the listeners, go Google or YouTube Peppermint Park. Obviously,
I'm going to.
Check out I'm a Pumpkin, because the little jingle is catchy and it is cute. But when you start to watch other aspects of the show, you're like,
I'm sure it's fucking weird.
Is this a real show? Like, you're like, dude, the puppets look fucking creepy. Like, when you look at them, it's odd.
Yo, so this is going to be a little bit of a tangent here. When I was younger, probably like, I don't know, like maybe 7 or 8, I used to get, like, my mom's a single mom, so I'd have to get babysat sometimes. So I remember going to, one of my mom's friends, and she had a little kid, my mom's friend, and he was like a few years younger than me. And they had this series. It was like called like Kids Songs or something like that. It was the same shit. It was like these weird like renditions of like classic like songs. Adam's shaking his head because I guess
know
he knows
exactly.
what I'm
I watched it in first grade.
So like they would just be these fucking bizarre ass, like a bunch of kids singing these like different versions, like like I don't know, like Mary Had a Little Lamb. Like it would be like that song, and like there would be all these kids singing it, and it's like just so weird. And even as a little kid, it fucking weirded me out. I was like, yo, this shit is bizarre. So like anything that has this connotation to it, and not that it's a bad connotation, it's just fucking weird.
You ever see like from the 70s HR Puffin stuff? You ever see clips of that?
That sounds familiar.
Oh, dude, you want to just feel completely uneasy. Like I remember watching an episode or two on YouTube, and I'm like, it's obviously a pot reference. And the main character has these big, like droopy, baggy eyes, and it's so wrong in every way. And the whole descriptions of this and kid songs on a different level. But you're right, like we watched that religiously in music class in like first grade, but in a completely different way. But that stuff was exactly what you're describing. Like how does this get made, and why is this even a thing? Who in some marketing groups like, what kids would like a McDonald's character looking thing that looks like it's high off its ass. That's what HR Puffin stuff was. And that falls in line right with what you're saying about this. And now I look at it with like a dark spin on it from them. Like, okay, this is a lo-fi kids song, but apparently not now.
Well, I think I think they like Peppermint Park, I'm a Pumpkin. This whole thing I think is done with good intentions. But I think, when you look back, we're looking at it now as adults, and you even think of something like the Banana Splits. They actually made a horror film about the Banana Splits was a children's show, I think in the 70s. And it was like the big giant mascot looking guys. And they made a horror film for the sci-fi channel where they're killing people. So there's these innocent kind of mascot characters that kids loved back in the day. They turned them into these scary, monster killer type characters in a movie a few years ago, a more contemporary film, because of how odd and eerie they looked. Peppermint Park, same thing. I feel like it's just such an odd show. Creepypastas have been inspired by them. A Channel Zero a season was inspired by it because of how fucking strange it was and just how weird the whole thing was. But I'm a Pumpkin, or I'm a Pumpkin, it's just a great little segment. I wouldn't say it's the most Halloween thing in the world, because it's really just the one pumpkin singing that's the focus of the entire thing. But I think it should have iconic status just because of the fucking bizarre nature.
Preach it to the world.
The whole thing. So more people need to share the I'm a Pumpkin segment from Peppermint Park. It's important that we do that this year.
Apparently, and speaking of shows that had puppets on them, R.L. Stine was the head writer on Eureka's Castle. Do you guys remember that show?
Yeah, another weird fucking show.
Bog and Moog.
Super fucking weird, but awesome because I watched that shit, and that shit was really, really wild to watch.
Yeah, that was a good show too.
It was.
Yeah.
Absolutely was.
Peppermint Park is like Eureka's Castle and Sesame Street with like a quarter of the budget, and I think that's what makes it so fucking horrific. It's just how cheap it was.
I'm going to show my age here, but Eureka's Castle was kind of like the predecessor to, came after the show on Nickelodeon, like real. It's called Pinwheel.
I remember Pinwheel.
I don't remember that.
Okay, good. I don't feel so like.
No, I remember Pinwheel.
And that was creepy in a lot of ways, like real low budget. I remember being super young when it was on, and that's a lot of just like forgotten, oddball kid stuff that probably falls in line. Check out a few YouTube episodes; you'll dig it.
If you want to go even further than that, you can check out fucking Special Delivery. You ever remember that show?
Today's
that
Special.
Was a show.
Today's
Special.
Guy.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Where his hat fell off and he
Special.
became a mannequin. Yeah.
Dude, it was about a retail worker who worked in like a clothing shop, and after hours when they closed the store, a mannequin would come to life. I think his name was Jeff, and
holy shit.
And the woman that worked there, her name was Jody, and
damn, dude.
They would just get into hijinks in the store after hours. There was a little female rat named Muffy, I believe. And they just got into some shit.
He's nailing every detail about that show that I forgot.
I used to watch it all the time.
That's fucking.
And if Dave's hat fell or Jeff's hat fell off, he would turn back into the mannequin, and somebody had to come by and put his hat back on.
I forgot about that show, dude. I forgot about that.
Weird as fuck.
Yeah, dude. We had a lot of weird shit when we were kids, dude. That's just what this tells you. A lot of this stuff hasn't aged well, but that's what's charming about it.
That's why it's good.
Yeah.
And one last fun fact here: I wrote a song about Jeff and Jody and them having a very weird intimate relationship.
Oh God!
Please send this to me.
A woman and a mannequin. I will.
There is a movie called Mannequin.
Mannequin, yes.
Kind of the same line.
Yes.
Yeah. They definitely got that from that, by the way.
Welcome to Jackass.
My second pick for my iconic jack-o'-lantern, not as iconic as Over the Garden Wall, but what you may remember of Jackass Season 1, Episode 1, the shopping cart scene with Bam Margera and Brendan DiCamillo wearing Pumpkinhead in the beginning. It's fleeting. It's not what everything's about. Most memorably about that scene too was the playing of 96 Quite Bitter Beans by CKY. To me, that is, if you mention Jackass, if you like pick one thing about Jackass ever, it's that scene. It's by far not their most dangerous or, death-defying thing ever. It's two idiots in a grocery store parking lot with pumpkins on their heads pushing each other over in parking lots. But that guitar riff is severely underrated. The song, I think that the song even is almost synonymous with the show.
Yeah, it is.
And generationally, if you're picking a pumpkin, on some kind of pop culture thing, it's the fact that these guys wore a pumpkin on their head for all of 15 seconds in this clip. And for me personally, so I was still in high school at the time. Me and three friends of mine on Halloween, we had nothing to do, so we all decided to get pumpkins, carve them, and put them on our heads, ride around in our cars around our mall. And that is what we did for Halloween. We drove around with large pumpkins on. We probably shouldn't have been driving.
Yeah, that sounds dangerous.
But and then after that, we went to our local Dunkin' Donuts, and I sat there with that pumpkin on my head at a table by myself, pretending to sip coffee, and just watched people walk in and just out there doing it, and I found it amusing. So I guess it's just kind of a predecessor to what happens now about carving a bunch of them. But yeah, being a fan of that show or not, I would argue to say that most people remember that scene just because so many elements that are in it. And I can't be the only idiot who went out and be like, oh, I'm going to put a pumpkin on my head. But it was fun, and it fits as iconic.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it fits as especially considering it must have been the Halloween season when they had originally recorded that. That's why I'm assuming that's why they're like, let's just put pumpkins on our head.
Big pumpkins were available. You can't be that far off.
I'm assuming that's why. You wouldn't know. It looks like the fall or autumn in the video because they're wearing jackets and hoodies and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming, and I forget where Bam Margera, I forget where they're from.
Pennsylvania.
Oh, is it Pennsylvania? Okay.
Westchester.
Yeah, it's in Pennsylvania.
I'm assuming obviously it gets a lot colder out there, when it's October compared to even like New York. So I'm guessing that's why they just had pumpkins. They're like, yo, let's just carve pumpkins and put them on our heads and just throw each other around while we're inside of shopping carts. I feel like every teenage boy that year
we did that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I did it too, like a fucking idiot. Like, oh, jump in and I'm gonna slam you into the fuck. And there were, you didn't even have a camera half the time. You were just being assholes to each other.
We talked about this in the text. This was not done for likes. This was not done for views. These were legitimate kids just having fun and goofing off.
Yeah,
that's what this was, and they capitalized off of that years down, down the road. But still, this was not, and the internet's been around for a while, so we can't say it's pre-internet, but this was not done for social media. This was done for being young and trying to have a good time. And
I would almost say though, it was done for something, because at that point he was making, he was still a famous skateboarder, and he was just making content for the skate videos he was in. But still, it's not an instant gratification type thing. It's
exactly.
you're like, okay, well, I live in the middle of fuck all nowhere. Shopping carts are used for two things: actually shopping and then putting your friends in them and pushing them. And throw the pumpkin on your head, and there you go. There's your creativity spin on it. But but you're right. Now everybody can go and do something and have a million people see it on TikTok. But it's like, okay, this. You had to know how to edit and do all this stuff that's readily available on your phone now.
Yeah,
I feel like it's crazy to think that Jackass is still a thing. All these, even though Bam's not a part of it because he has a lot of personal demons.
That guy's a mess now.
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. But the fact that Jackass is still, like, they made a movie 2-3 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, like the fact that it's still a thing is wild to me. These guys are like in their 50s. Still abusing themselves. So it's kind of crazy. It's fucking crazy. Just that's still.
Hot take real quick. So whenever anytime I'd watch this or even just revisiting it now just to, get familiar with it again, it automatically makes me think of the Office episode when Dwight puts a pumpkin on his head.
Yeah.
Now I wonder if the Office got that idea from this because The Office supposed to take place in Scranton, Pennsylvania. These guys live in Pennsylvania. I almost wonder if that was kind of maybe a tribute. Who knows? It's a hot take.
Very
so I'm not
possible.
saying, you know what I'm saying? I don't think it's impossible.
We just covered the Adventures of Pete and Pete Halloweeny with the pumpkin eaters, and they wear pumpkins on their heads
absolutely.
too.
Yeah,
and
I didn't even think of that.
That predates this, I'm pretty sure, or around close.
What year was this again?
I would say 99.
So
I thought it was earlier.
Look it up.
So the Halloween,
Halloween.
Yeah. So the Adventures of
It was season 1, episode 1.
It was the very first
whenever
Jackass episode. That's crazy, dude. But yeah, if you think about it, the only three things that come to mind with guys wearing jack-o'-lanterns on their heads is Dwight, like Dave just said in that episode. This Jackass and the pumpkin eaters from Halloweeny. So,
which I need to go watch. I listened to your guys' episode on it, and I'm like, how do I not? I don't know if I ever saw it, but I have to.
It's a great episode, man.
And I gotta say, Sheila and I have been doing these Snick nights and Snick mornings, and we've been watching a lot of Pete and Pete. I stand corrected. I need to watch it more because I love it.
Yo, you were sleeping on it. Yeah, you were sleeping. In the episode, Dave says he's not a big fan, and I'm glad you've been watching it because it is a great show. Like, just everything about it. I'm glad you gave a little update, Dave, from since that episode. Dave is
sold on it.
He's sold. Now it's becoming top tier for him. So
yeah,
you can always find Little Pete at Danny Tamborelli. You always find Little Pete at in Somerville, New Jersey. He's always at a diner. He's local.
That's
wow. All my friends who are in like punk bands. So like, oh, the Little Pete and Pete kid is always at the diner after shows and stuff. It's pretty funny.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Is a WWAR special bulletin.
Police in Haddonfield have just made the grisly discovery of 3 bodies in the upstairs bedrooms of this house. It appears that the murders took place sometime early this evening. Authorities have confirmed that all 3 of the victims are teenagers, 2 girls and a boy. Police are searching the entire area for a mental patient who escaped last night from the Smiths Grovewarn County Sanitarium. He is now believed to be at large in Haddonfield. This is Robert Mundy, live.
Well, my second pick is from Halloween 2, which was directed by Rick Rosenthal, released in 1981, and it is not the cool skull pumpkin and its awesome intro. So let's just get that out of the way right now. I'm not talking about that. It is awesome, but it's not this. I'm not going to go over, which I could, how I feel Halloween 2 does everything the original does, but better. I'm talking about the amazingly lit one-take opening sequence that throws you right into Michael's POV. Searching for someplace to regroup, we find a dog, we find Loomis yelling at a cop, and finally a cutback to another one-shot, and we are led to a window of a kitchen of a woman making a sandwich. But most importantly, the reason why I'm talking about this today is there's a jack-o'-lantern there, and it's a really unconventionally carved jack-o'-lantern. And the pumpkin itself is shaped perfectly. Like, it's a perfect pumpkin shape. It's got a perfect stem. It's got a candle inside of it. It's got everything that you want in a jack-o'-lantern. The jack-o'-lantern's face looks like Beavis from Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, it's fucking odd looking, yeah.
It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's got nostrils. It's got like lightning bolt-shaped eyes and jagged teeth. It's pretty gnarly looking, and I would love to see someone make a Halloween 2 bootleg shirt with this jack-o'-lantern on it instead of the one that everybody knows about.
Do it.
So, that would be so cool. But it's really kind of a, I don't want to say blink and you miss it moment because it is there, but I mean, I don't think many people probably don't pay too much attention to that jack-o'-lantern because I've never heard anybody talk about it.
So first, if you want to hear Dave and I's thoughts on Halloween 2, we covered it about a year and some change ago on Patreon. We talked about Halloween 2 for like an hour and a half. So go and subscribe to the Patreon because that was a good episode when we covered Halloween 2. I remember that being
they're all good.
Pretty intense deep dive into the second Halloween.
I don't
think we talked about this pumpkin.
No, probably
at
not.
all. I don't think you mentioned it. I mentioned it at all. What I want to say, and I think we did talk about the setup of this scene because you've got the neighbors. It's like an older couple. Then you got the young girl who gets killed. I love, it's all POV. It's all through the eyes of Michael Myers, which is a big, kind of attribute of the series to an extent. They kind of got away with that a little later in the franchise, but. Mm-hmm. Those scenes of him kind of in the back alleys of these homes, and then that kind of pan past the window, and she's got like
so well done.
Yeah, and then just seeing the pumpkin. And it's the only Halloween decoration, which is what I love about it, the simplicity of it, in this old couple's home, from what I remember. It's like just the pumpkin in the window, and they're watching Night of the Living Dead, funny enough, which is the go-to public domain film in every movie.
Yep.
It's just a great, it's very atmospheric, even though it's simple. And I think what they were trying to do, so I think this was the idea behind this pumpkin, even though it's weird looking. I don't think they intended on it looking so strange. I just think that's the way Dave sees it. And I agree with you, Dave. It is a weird looking face.
It's a weird face to put on a jack-o'-lantern.
Weird.
Especially how all the jack-o'-lanterns in that movie, from the first one, we all know what that iconic jack-o'-lantern looks like.
For sure.
So to like completely flip it and do this fucking almost like scrawling looking face on a jack-o'-lantern, it's weird.
In the first Halloween movie, which we also covered, that's a great episode Dave and I did over on Patreon. I think we might have released that to the regular feed as a bonus. So
probably.
Go back and look for that.
So
yeah, go back and listen to that. In the original Halloween, there, the film opens with Michael Myers POV going to kill his sister. And you see a jack-o'-lantern in front of the Myers house. I think what they were trying to do in the second one was mimic that by putting this jack-o'-lantern in the window of this older family's house, because Michael Myers, once again, is going on the hunt to murder somebody.
Right.
And he kills a attractive young lady in the scene. So
what's really interesting about this sequence, and especially with the woman in the kitchen, she is always in the background every shot she's in. Mm-hmm. So when you watch the movie, there's a pumpkin in front of her. When you watch when it goes inside the house, her husband is in front of her. It's an interesting, like, I guess, dynamic where all her scenes are shot with her in the back. She's never in the front. She's always in the back of the shot. So it's just a little something I picked up on watching it, but
Mrs.
It's just a great scene.
Is her name. I think it's Mrs. Elrod and Mr. Elrod. I believe that's their name. Those
it's a great
names.
Scene because
it's also how Michael gets his knife too. That's how he gets his.
And he kind of like he gets his knife and he kind of like stands there for a second. Like you almost think like, oh, is he gonna try to cut these people up and kill them? And he doesn't. He just walks away.
Yo, and he fucks up the cutting board, man. He leaves blood on it, the sandwich, all the delicious cheese and all that stuff. He fucks up her whole meal, man. Fucking Michael Myers, dude. But that's an obscure jack-o'-lantern. Adam, do you even have any memory of this jack-o'-lantern that Dave picked from Halloween 2?
Yes. Yeah. I hate it. I hate it. So when my memory was refreshed with this work of art,
this monstrosity,
I'm like, apparently the props department of the Halloween film production crews decide, let's just make the absolutely shittiest looking pumpkin possible. Dave nailed it when he said it looks like Beavis. And I'm looking at the picture, I'm writing my notes, I'm like, okay, I gotta have some snarky ass like opinion or just relatable thing. And all I could think, like, you're completely correct. It's better than the first film.
Wow.
I'm so happy you agree with me because not a lot of people do.
No, well, yeah, that's why everybody's insane. But like, it's only better because it looks like shit. Like, I'll be honest, but it took effort to do. Somebody sat there and intricately carved that weird nose and all that. Somebody took time. But this is not like similar to be like, oh, okay, we're gonna roll in about 5 minutes. Can somebody run to the grocery store and carve a pumpkin real quick?
That's probably what happened.
The first one.
Yeah, more than likely.
That's the first one.
Yeah,
that's the first one. I was like, oh, it's the knife blade that's supposed to. Like, shut up. No, it's not. Somebody just carved a crappy pumpkin, and that's what got thrown on the scene. This somebody sat and carved it. It doesn't look good, but there was effort there.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, the Michael Myers mask is an unfinished William Shatner face.
Yeah.
The face of that entire franchise exists because somebody was lazy and found a cheap mask
That's
that
amazing
wasn't
to think
finished.
about it like that.
So if you think for 1 second somebody's just not gonna a pumpkin on a scene,
just quickly carve it. So
right. Like you can light me up all you want. about my opinions on it. I think it's terrible. This is better because it's somebody took the time to carve it. I don't like it. Your description of Beavis is 100%.
Beavis Jack-o'-lantern
is dead on. But yeah, I kept my mouth shut for the duration of this pick, and then just let me go.
Adam was trying to avoid giving his 2 cents on this one just because Adam hates every jack-o'-lantern in the Halloween series.
I don't know about every. I would have to legitimately go back and watch every single one. I mean, the Halloween 3 jack-o'-lantern looks great, sure, but it's technically not
a real jack-o'-lantern. Yeah.
Right. But if you want for next year, I'll make sure I go back and view the actual jack-o'-lanterns in the Halloween franchise and see if all of them are as equally as terrible as these two.
Oh, no.
But hey, somebody's making money on merch with that thing, so what do I know?
Next year, we're going to do a bonus episode. Adam ranks every jack-o'-lantern in the Halloween franchise.
You should do it, honestly.
Best to worst. So,
save your Patreon money.
For this part of the show, I want to show you something that I'm not as scared of, which is jack-o'-lanterns. And my guest who's going to show us how to make a jack-o'-lantern is my first guest, Sandy Grungerson.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Sandy, you look a little bit like a witch.
My last pick, and the last jack-o'-lantern we're talking about technically isn't even a jack-o'-lantern. It's more so a scenario that features a jack-o'-lantern and features carving two jack-o'-lanterns and features the idea of carving a jack-o'-lantern. And that's why I picked this. I picked this because everyone that listens to our show has carved a jack-o'-lantern. Also deep cut. And I have a question before I get into the actual pick. Have either of you ever injured yourself carving a jack-o'-lantern? I have not.
No.
Adam, have you cut yourself? A little blood?
I shouldn't even answer this question because I'm just going to jinx myself this year. I'm like, yep.
Well,
that I can recall, no. Knock wood.
Knock on. We're all knocking on the wood.
Yeah,
None of us have ever injured ourselves, and that plays into my pick, which is from the Check It Out with Steve Brule TV show, and the segment is called On the Spot with Sandy Sanders. Now, if you're not familiar with Check It Out with Steve Brule, it's another Adult Swim show. Again, it goes back to what I said, the unintentional theme of our episode. A lot of Adult Swim kind of Cartoon Network, picks here this year. 3 of them, yeah. Mm-hmm. If you're not familiar with Check It Out, what it is it's supposed to be a low budget, like micro budget, public access show. I believe it's supposed to be like the late 80s, early 90s, like really, really low quality graphics on the screen. And it's supposed to be kind of like Learn to Read. I don't know if you guys remember Learn to Read. Mm-hmm. Like one of those kind of shows where you're learning about different types of things. And it's weird because the host is John C. Reilly, Steve Brule. He portrays Steve Brule. And I'm gonna choose my words wisely here in describing him. He is a special person. He's special needs of some kind. He is on the spectrum in a way. Is it safe to say that, guys? Would both of you agree that he's eccentric is not the word. He is special.
He got out at
2:00 instead of 3.
Yes, he's a special boy, special man. And I will say, Check It Out is probably my favorite Adult Swim show. I'm a huge fan of it. And it's a spinoff of, was it Tim and Eric? That's where Steve Brule comes from.
Yeah, it's affiliated.
Yeah. Originally, he was on the Tim and Eric show, and then it was a spinoff, and he got his own TV show. So... And I recommend, I think it was about 3 to 4 seasons. Once again, every episode's like 10 minutes long. Odd shit. You basically got Steve Brule visits, a restaurant in one episode and learns how to run a restaurant. He learns how to fly a plane. He learns to drive. People come in studio. and he butchers their names. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. Things always go wrong. He's always farting and vomiting and fucking things up and hurting himself. It's the dumbest thing in the world, and not in the Joe Pera sense. It's just bizarre. It's kind of like gross out humor meets kind of dumb. Fuck, it's dumb. It's dumb. I will admit, dumb. It's fucking dumb, but I love it.
Very dumb.
Very dumb. But in the segment On the Spot with Sandy Sanders, you've got Steve Brule and this woman who he calls Sandy Gunderson. He doesn't even call her by her real name.
It's amazing.
He always fucks people's names up. That's like an ongoing gag with this character. He like the name of the person will be on the screen and he still says the wrong name. So he calls her Sandy Gunderson. And she is going to show Steve Brule how to carve a jack-o'-lantern. Now, the setup is great. It looks really cheap, public access-y. You've got like this scarecrow in the back, haystacks, a couple of pumpkins sitting on the table. One of them is completely carved and done, and I'm assuming that's supposed to be Sandy's jack-o'-lantern. And Steve, in his kind of special way, tells Sandy to show him how to carve a jack-o'-lantern. Now, before he gets into that, I do like how he insults her and calls her a witch, that she kind of looks like a witch. That's probably
that's my favorite part of the video.
Because, they never outright say Halloween, but obviously that's kind of like, this is like the little Halloween segment that Check It Out's producing. And he tells her, he goes, Sandy, you kind of look like a witch. And it's obviously an insult, but it goes right over her head.
And she just goes, no.
Yes. And and then I think asked her, he's like, do you have a cat? Still pushing the fact that she looks like a witch because she's like an older woman. And she goes, yes, I do have a black cat, but it has white paws or something like that. So she's like defending herself, trying to take this insult and flip it on him. But he just doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't give a shit. So Steve insists he's kind of cocky and wants to carve the jack-o'-lantern and sub. He's like, oh, I know how to do it. Oh, I got this. And he starts stabbing it, carving. He says he's going to carve eyes and ends up chopping off one of his fingers. And like this tantrum. It's funny because Sandy kind of vanishes. She like leaves the segment and it's just him screaming as his finger is severed completely. He's screaming, crying, fuck carving pumpkins. He grabs one of the pumpkins, smashes it on the ground. It's fucking amazing. It's a minute long.
She pulls his finger out of the jack-o'-lantern.
Yes, she does. She is there, but I think off to the side. You're right. She pulls the finger out. It's fucking so dumb and has nothing to do with the jack-o'-lantern technically, but that's what I love about it because it involves carving a jack-o'-lantern. And it's kind of, whenever you watch these public safety videos from the 80s and the 70s, like, Halloween safety, pumpkin carving safety is always an aspect of all these. Dave and I, to plug another episode, we covered one of them, I think from the 80s, a year or so ago. But that's always an important factor. Like, always use safety when carving your pumpkins. Don't ever use kitchen knives, even though back in the day, before we had all these tools that you could buy to carve pumpkins, you would use just, kitchen utensils and stuff. So I just love how things go completely wrong for Steve here. He fucking loses a finger in the process. And the pumpkins that they're carving, the one that's on the table, isn't anything special. But just the scenario to me is what's special about it. It's fucking absurd.
You know what's funny? I like when she's like, oh, he's like, well, show me what to do. And she's like, well, you gotta cut the top. And he goes, oh, they gotta cut the top. And the top's already cut. And he just kind of cuts around it anyway. And he goes, look at that. He goes, it's easy. It's already done.
He's like,
that's why it's so easy, because it's done already.
That's what the best thing is, because that's kind of another running gag with Steve is he completely ignores them whenever they're trying to show him the proper way to do anything, and it always backfires on him. You know what I mean? And I love that. There's an episode I love of Check It Out where he starts eating seafood from a dumpster and just starts gets like food poisoning 5 minutes later, he's eating shrimp. He's like, oh, this is all good stuff, and blah, blah, blah. Because I don't think they let him in the restaurant or they kick him out or something like that. So it's like, it always backfires. And in this case, him just trying to carve a pumpkin, he loses a fucking finger and has a tantrum. It's fucking great, dude. I love Check It Out. And I love that there's a Halloween pumpkin segment. It makes the show even better. Adam, have you heard of this show?
I've heard of the show. It's the first time I've actually seen this one, which then, like, there you go, another classic. Like, in our episode alone just makes you realize, like, man, how much good internet quality exists simply out of the idea of carving jack-o'-lanterns and stuff. Like, this has to be made into just a giant compilation of stuff like this, because there's one video that I saw online a few years ago that I've been looking for to use as a choice for it, and I can't find it. And this is just a test. I mean, this is a testament just how much rando pumpkin carving stuff there is out there. And this was good. As I watched it, like, a few things that came to mind. The lady looks like a witch. She looks like a witch, or she kind of looks like a beat down version of Susan Boyle. You remember that, like, weird looking British woman on America's Got Talent or something? She comes out, she looks real frumpy, and then she sounds like the voice of an angel. I'm like, that lady looks like Susan Boyle. Second thing that I picked up from this is, at some point he reaches his hand into the pumpkin. He's like, oh, the guts are slimy or whatever. That is top notch Halloween pumpkin guts ASMR.
Yes.
Like, somebody's probably listening to that, like, just put it on repeat. But
hey, listen.
But yeah,
pumpkin guts are pretty stinky sometimes and kind of gross when I'm used to it at this point, but you know.
I think I told you, though, if you go, this comes from a person who only carved a bajillion of these things to know something ridiculous like this. If you go to Walmart, right, and buy a pumpkin, shoot me for buying my pumpkins from Walmart, but listen, I have to save a buck. If you buy a pumpkin from Walmart and carve it, and you cut it open, the guts don't smell good. But if you buy it from, like, an actual farm, it smells like they did when you were a kid. Mm-hmm. Like, there's a difference. I just totally went off the deep end. Like, compare next time. Next time
I'm gonna have to.
You go on, like, a hay ride, and you go, you do the romanticized Sunday weekend thing, and you go pick a pumpkin from the farm, and then you go buy, your $4 pumpkin from Walmart. The Walmart one stinks, but the real ones, the organic ones, smell like nostalgia.
The $9 pumpkins are better than the $4 pumpkins, is what you're saying.
You're lucky if it's $9. They're charging you $1 a pound now.
Yeah, you're right. It'll end up being like a $15 pumpkin compared to the $2.99 pumpkin that stinks like garbage.
But I would hope Steve Brule's pumpkin at least smelled authentic and ruins the ASMR for you if it stink.
He got him from a farm pumpkin patch before, even though he ended up losing a fucking finger because of it. So but yeah, my pick, this pick was a little left field. Technically not a jack-o'-lantern. There's a jack-o'-lantern in it.
I like it.
It's a basic pumpkin, but I think the overall idea is why I wanted to talk about it here, because you got to carve a pumpkin to make a jack-o'-lantern. You know what I mean?
This is true.
Of course.
Now, to close out the show, I want us each to pick one jack-o'-lantern from the other. Was their favorite. So we'll start with you, Adam. Out of all the picks, which one are you going with as your favorite? Either from one of my picks or one of Dave's picks.
It's tough because I'm a pumpkin I was turned on my head as soon as you started to go into the creepiness about it.
Yes.
I was super impressed with it, but I have to give the edge to the Joe Pera. Like, I'm just like, I'm going to watch this religiously. Yes. I'm so glad it exists. So that's my win right there.
Okay.
What about you, Dave? What are you going with?
See, normally I'd probably go with the Over the Garden Wall pumpkin people, but because we've talked about it, we've talked about it before, I'm gonna just go a little bit left field, and I'm probably gonna go with I'm a Pumpkin. I think just because I really can't wait to watch Peppermint Park now.
You want to watch the fucking ridiculous show.
Yeah.
You have nightmares for the next week.
I'm ready for it.
You're not sleeping tonight if you watch an
I'm
episode.
ready for it.
I'm going with Joe Pera. We're tied, dude. Basically 2-2 because the Joe Pera, that Joe Pera segment warms my heart, and it's also extremely fucking strange.
Dude, watch the rest of the show. It's great.
Yeah,
I want to see the whole episode.
It's great. The entire series is great.
Honestly, it's the Joe Pera show, and check it out. Watching both of those shows, it's a weird experience. I think if you were to watch like a couple of episodes from each one, you're gonna be like, they're so opposite, but there's something about them that's similar too. It's weird. It's fucking weird. It's weird and shot very differently, aesthetically very different, but weird host.
Wonderful as it is to give a pumpkin life, you also give it death. An uncarved pumpkin can last 3 months, but a jack-o'-lantern rots in 5 to 10 days.
So that was Iconic Jack-O'-Lanterns Part 4, a.k.a. the Adult Swim show. At this point, that's what this was. This is our coverage of
Not
Adult
mad about
Swim. Not mad about it. Adam, thank you for joining us for the 4th time.
Thank you again.
Of
Looking
course.
forward to year 5.
Of course, year 5 coming. Where can people find you?
On Instagram primarily at Great Pumpkin Project. The website Great Pumpkin Project, thegreatpumpkinproject.com. That's where you can go and print your own tags, put them on your pumpkins. Last year's tags will be up there to print sometime in October. Print them out, put them on a pumpkin, put it somewhere. Join the fun, and email if you want to send your pics that way to at greatpumpkinproject@gmail.com. And thank you guys for having me once again. This is always
a pleasure.
fun.
And be sure to subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Haunted Hangover. Head over to hauntedhangover.com for all the links to Patreon, Spotify, iTunes, the YouTube channel, all that good stuff at hauntedhangover.com.
And if you can rate and review us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And as always, remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Catch you guys later.
Bye.